welcome back. Today I am going over fabric tumblers. I have a 20-ounce tumbler here, and I have had many people request a whole tutorial on from start to finish. So today that's what I'm going to do. So if it's a little lengthy, I am sorry, I apologize, but I am a little bit of a perfectionist and like to make sure that I get it right the first time, so I do not have to strip my cups, because that's just a waste of material that I just did, and I really don't like to waste material and time. So let's get started. Today I'm going to show you a few pieces of fabric. I went to Walmart. Some people go to Michael's, Joann's, Hobby Lobby, wherever you can find fabric. Walmart fabric I like because it has these little square, well, these are not little, these are a little bit bigger, squares. Some are for 97 cents and they can range all the way up to $5. I got this pack because I'm getting ready to do a theme of all fabric cups, so I thought, why not have somewhat of a matching theme. So this came with 5 swatches of fabric, ranging from feathers here, which is really cute. I love the boho style. Then we have dream catchers and different designs there. And we have, of course, the arrows there, and then some diamond shapes, which is really cool. Now, and then some more designs here. This is the only one that I'm concerned with. So far when I have done a white fabric, you want to make sure that you spray paint your tumbler with white flat spray paint, because if you don't and you put this thin layer of fabric over your cup, let's see if I can get it unfolded here and see if it will show. It may not show, but once you get it stretched and on, the Mod Podge that you will be putting over will seep through. And if you don't put enough Mod Podge, once you put your epoxy on, the epoxy can slip through the fabric and make stains, or what look like stains. I don't have a example because I had to strip it. So the darker fabric, you don't have to worry about so much because you won't be able to see on the cup. You can still prime your cup with spray paint if you wanted to, black, if you're doing dark, or gray, if you're doing a gray fabric. That's up to you. Silver and gray kind of go together, so I wouldn't worry about it. But today I'm using the dark, and I think I'll use the feather one. So I'm leaving this as is. 1, I don't have spray paint. 2, it doesn't really concern since it's a dark fabric. So what I do now is go ahead and unfold the fabric and just kind of test out how much fabric you're going to need. And by doing that, I just wrap the fabric around the cup, and it doesn't, oh, I'm sorry, it doesn't have to be perfect. You're just measuring how much you need. Or you can take a measuring tape and measure around the cup, whichever is easiest for you. And you kind of almost want to overlap a couple of inches. So I'd almost do about 12 to 13 inches out. So just measure from the end of your fabric to about 12 to 13 inches and cut. Okay, but I just like to wrap around because it just gives me more sense of how much fabric I will need. And sometimes if you get it just right where the fabric was folded, it's an easy cut. I don't have a fabric cutter, so it's not going to be straight. But it's just you always want to have extra, and I'll show you why in just a few minutes. Okay, and the extra fabric should be enough for a small 10-ounce tumbler if you're wanting to do matching tumblers, which is a really cute idea. So now that I have the fabric measured around, now you want to measure from top to bottom. Again, I kind of just leave a good inch at the top and probably a good inch at the bottom. That piece also might cover a 10-ounce or a small sippy cup. I try not to waste too much of my fabric, of course. If you get it really, really cheap and you don't care, it's okay. And also what I like about the Walmart fabric that you can find, it stretches and gives a lot. And I really enjoy that because when working with Mod Podge, it kind of dries really fast and you want to make sure that you have it lined up the way you want it. And if it's not, it gives just a little enough to pull in any direction that you need. Okay, so now the fun part. I have the Mod Podge mat. When doing fabric, it doesn't matter if it's dishwasher safe because you will be epoxying over the Mod Podge. So it seals that. So let's go ahead and you want to put on a pretty good layer just so it doesn't dry out really fast, because once you put the fabric on, it kind of seeps into the fabric really fast, and you want to have at least a little bit of a give in case you need to stretch it in any direction. And you may have to go over it a couple of times in areas because it may separate. I don't know if you can tell, like right here it's starting to separate, and I'll have to go over that again. My cat talking to me this morning. So once you get that done, I'm almost there. And once you hit back where you started, just kind of real quick go over the spots that you see that may have dried up or separated. Like I said, it will not hurt to have quite a bit of Mod Podge on your cup. Okay, so there. I forgot to explain this part too. Some people like to leave the bottom piece silver and the top piece silver. If you do, just tape, washi tape or electrical tape or whatever you like, but I like mine to come all the way down my cup. That way you won't cover. So now the fun part, the easy part, I think, of the whole thing is wrapping your cup. Depending on your design, if it has to line up, that's going to be a tricky part. Otherwise, you just roll with it. And but this one I want to try to make a little bit of straight. So if you want to start from there, you just work and smooth out any wrinkles, and you may get to where your Mod Podge is seeping through the fabric. That's totally fine, because you're going to be Mod Podging over that anyways, many times, and I will get to that in just a minute. So just smooth out, especially where the creases are, where the fabric has been folded. You definitely want to get those creases out. And I can tell my Mod Podge is starting to dry really fast. And I'm back where I need to be. Okay. So there. And if you find that you need to Mod Podge in certain areas, you see that it's lifted up, or you can just tell that it needs it, you can always unravel, add Mod Podge where you need to, and then go back, fold it back. Okay, so like this area here. So I'm back at my starting point, but this little piece needs just a little bit more Mod Podge. And you can go ahead and start Mod Podging, overlapping about 1 inch, 2 inches. Fold that over. And just smooth out. Okay. Now, the tricky part. And the god-awful waiting part. So now that you have covered your whole cup, okay, you've come to where you need to make your seam. And you want to try to do this patiently, because you will have to wait. Depending on how thick you add your Mod Podge, drying time can vary. So now you want to, again, I unravel just a little bit, and I want to Mod Podge where my starting point was. So you can see my cup here, stainless steel right there. So I just want to about 1 inch to 2 inches cover this, because you want it to harden, because it will make it easier to cut and it will not fray and your fabric will not come apart. And I like to do just a little extra on the ends here, just to make those easier to cut in a little bit. So then fold that over. Shoot, kitty. And Mod Podge the top of where you just Mod Podge the bottom. Okay? You want to make sure it is pulled not tight, but pulled pretty tight. And again, that's where the flexibility in the fabric comes from. So you have it where you want it. Okay? I'm going to have to shoo my kitty out of here. She keeps messing in all my ribbons and fabrics and bags. Okay, so let that dry, and I actually will apply one more coat over the top. Okay. So once you do your first Mod Podge over the top of the fabric where your seam is going to be, let it dry, and then do one more coat, and then I will show you how to cut to have both the seam on the bottom and the top to match. Okay, welcome back. Now you should have your 2 coats of Mod Podge where your seam is going to go. Now this part I've seen done many ways. Whatever you feel comfortable with doing, then that is up to you. Sorry, let me straighten that out. But this is how I do it. It just seems a little quicker to me and more efficient. Some people like to, before you would Mod Podge the bottom layer, stick tape down and then cut. Fold back this top layer and then cut where that seam was, and then you've got your seam. I feel like doing it this way, it eliminates one step. So the less steps, the better for me. It should be pretty good and dry. If it still feels tacky, please wait and let it completely dry. It should be about 30 minutes dry time. I always try to make sure that it is completely dry, because if you are in a hurry and want to cut your seam and your glue is not dry, your fabric is going to pull. And when you cut and your fabric pulls, when you try to fit your seam together, there's going to be gaps on where you're cutting. So you want to take your tape. I have just some old washi tape that I use. I don't like the design at all, so I use it for odds and ends stuff. So I don't know if you can tell, but right here is the end of the bottom piece, and I usually go out maybe a 1/2 inch from that end seam and try to make the straightest line with my tape. Just fold that inside there, lay that tape down, kind of eye it. If it doesn't look straight, you can adjust to what it looks straight to you. Okay. Now, you should have, I'd say about a 1/2 inch. Right here's the end. Right here's this tape. So you're going to be cutting on this end where your seam has just ended. Okay. Make sure your X-Acto knife blade is rather sharp, new. I just changed this out just a few minutes ago. So mine is brand spanking new. So now I always hesitate, I always wait to make sure my glue is completely dry, because this part, if you mess up and your seams are not together, you can try to pull the fabric a little bit more to get the seams together, but some fabric is not forgiving, so you really have to be careful on this part. Okay, so now you want to start cutting on the edge of the tape, oh so carefully, right along the edge of the tape. It's like holding your breath. You're like, don't want to mess up. Like that. I don't know what I just hit, but I will have to fix that part. Oh, you know what? I think I'm hitting the emblem on the stainless steel cup. Try not to have the seam, the seam should be in the back of the cup. I always try to make sure that the logo is on the back. But I think I'm hitting that. Logo. I may be wrong, but okay. Now, go back over. If you did mess up, go back over to make sure there are no fabrics still together. I'm sorry if you're not able to see this part, because I just want to make sure that I've got my, so there's my part where I messed up. Yeah, that's the logo part. Okay. Go out and make sure that's cut there. this way. And that part's cut. Okay. So now you have this extra flap here. That should be pulled away and tossed. Toss it, or keep it if you want. If there's really small project that you could get any of this fabric used, then by all means keep the fabric. That's not too bad. Okay, so now that top piece is gone, and now you can see your seam, but underneath that top layer will be some extra from the bottom layer. You need to lift that apart and pull that bottom piece out. Just make sure that all the little fiber pieces there are cut. So now you shouldn't have any underneath or any on top fabric, that is, sorry. And you should have your seam flawless. Flawless seam. Even though I thought I messed up, I really didn't mess up, which is awesome. So you may have to pinch right at the seam just to gather just a little bit to close it. But other than that, you can definitely tell where my seam is because my feathers are not matching up perfectly, but that's okay. This is in the back. The rest of it is right here. What you can do is, if depending on the fabric, you can put a name along the seam and hide it with vinyl, or just leave it as is. You know, it's totally up to you on how you want your cup to look. Trying to show you, but right here is my seam, right here. And I will take a picture, and on the end of the video I will be able to show you the seam closely. But that's how I get my seam. Now that eliminates one step for the seam. So now what I do after I get that, I Mod Podge the seam down, just glue it together. Glue, glue. And that helps on some fabrics almost disappear, the seam disappear, especially if you can get your fabric to line up. Then your seam is going to be on point, let me tell you. And now what I normally do is cover the whole cup, go around the whole cup and Mod Podge up to around the rim of the cup and the bottom piece of the cup. And then I will show you our next step. So go ahead and Mod Podge the whole cup, and we'll return in just a few minutes. Okay, so now you should have Mod Podge all over your cup, all the way around until you got to your seam. Mine's still drying just a tad bit, but I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next step. My good old trusty scissors here. These are an old pair that I've had. If you have fabric scissors, I recommend getting fabric scissors, and especially if you're going to be doing a whole lot of fabric work. Just seen that little spot there that needed to be smoothed out. So now you've got your cup pretty much glued together, fabric glued all over the cup. You've got your seam ready to go. Now you need to get these edges off of the bottom and the top. So, and what you should have done while you were Mod Podging your whole cup is come all the way up to the edge to make sure that those were somewhat stiff. If you haven't, go ahead and do so, and then come back to this step. So what I do is I just cut right at the edge of, I usually go to where I can see from the inside out of the fabric. Cut right at, have the rim be your guideline, and just start cutting around. All the fabric off. Then what I normally do, at this part, if you wanted that good inch off the top of the rim of the cup, then you would take your X-Acto knife, because you would have Mod Podged underneath a rim of tape. Then you would take your X-Acto knife and you would be able to see the edge rim from the inside, and just cut around and cut the fabric and then peel it off. I have not done it that way. I've always gone to the edge rim of my cup. I just like a full length fabric cup. But you know, whatever your customer or you want, it's all in a trial and error. So now what I do is I go back around and trim kind of at an angle now with my scissors. I'm sorry guys. At an angle, and just kind of trim till I can't really see it from the top. Can't see the fabric from the top. All the way around. Until it looks the way that you want it, okay? It's your crafting moment. Whatever you think looks good, go for it. Okay, so now you can see I got just a tiny little bit of the rim showing, just a tiny little bit, because I want my epoxy to go right over the top of that fabric. Okay, now the bottom piece. The bottom piece is pretty much the same. You just guideline, use the bottom piece for your guideline of cutting. I don't fold my fabric over under on the bottom because I will be putting a sticker with my logo and branding my cups. Some people like to fabric the whole bottom, and that is totally up to you. But it's a little bit extra work, and I'm all about trying to save some time. So now too much right there. There we go. Okay. Alright guys, so there you go. First fabric cup for you. I will give you a pat on the back, give yourself a high five, a hug, whatever, to celebrate, because you just made your first fabric cup. Now this part, you want to Mod Podge all over again, especially on the bottom. If you did leave room to fold your fabric, which there may be just a little bit on mine, just to fold just a tiny little bit, even if you take and cut the bottom piece and have the silver showing right here, you definitely want to Mod Podge around that fabric piece. So now I probably Mod Podge 2 to 3 more times, especially if you have the white fabric or any fabric that you can kind of see through. You definitely want to Mod Podge all around your cup at least 2 to 3 more times, or more. You know, whatever makes you feel like it's safe enough, because when you add your epoxy, if there is a tiny little hole that is not glued down, that epoxy will seep through and bubble up your fabric and make it puff up. Definitely do not want that. So I always Mod Podge my cup at least 2 to 3 times, just to seal it with that glue, and then you're going to seal it with the epoxy. One step you can do, if you have a fabric and you want to add a saying or a logo or a name, do your Mod Podge 2 to 3 times. Your first coat of epoxy, put your name, logo, whatever on, and then epoxy again. And then after that, if you feel like there should be another coat of epoxy, then add it. I try not to add too many coats of epoxy because it will weigh the cup down and it's real heavy, and you're already adding liquid to it, so you don't really want it to be like a 10-pound cup. So let's go ahead and Mod Podge 2 to 3 more times, and you're all set. And that's it, guys. You're finished. And if you have any questions, please leave comments below. I will try to get them to them as soon as possible. But that's a fabric cup from start to finish, other than epoxying, which takes time. So I'm not going to do that on the video. Pretty much everybody knows how to epoxy. I would hope so anyways. But there you go, guys. Make sure it's sealed all the way around the rims. Really good. That's mostly where you want to Mod Podge 2 to 3 times. And you're set. And there's your cup. Alright, guys. I hope y'all have a fabulous day. Take it easy.